Well, I want to welcome everybody to our Season 3 podcast. And we've got some great conversation coming. I want to thank Rod, one of my good friends, my clients, who's now my great friend.
I was his client.
Yes, the collaboration, special collaboration. We want to thank him for in his beautiful home here in El Cerrito. And you'll talk about the home a little bit, or do you want to say something about it?
Oh, maybe later.
Maybe later, okay. And of course, my buddy Rob, he's amazing. I'm so glad that he's here with us, co-hosting. And then we have a very special guest, Robert Picardo. Yes.
Thank you. Holograms are not supposed to drink. They don't have the stomach for it. That's a little hologram humor.
We don't have the stomach for it.
But actors who play them are delighted always to come to a wine tasting. I've never done a wine podcast before. I've done plenty of podcasts, and frankly, I probably would have a much higher opinion of doing podcasts had they been wine podcasts.
So what we like to do is we like to just pop open a bottle of wine and taste it and talk about it a little bit. And I know that you like drier wines. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have Rob. What you mentioned this the other day, and then this is the.
Yeah. Well, I think Rod should talk about this because Rod told me this was a very special bottle of wine. So, Rod, can you tell us a little bit about this wine?
Yeah, that's from the vineyard or winery of Fairchild, and it's just a small place, but they have special wines there. Like this one, this is one of my favorites. Stone's number one. I think this is number one, right?
Yep, that's Stone's number one.
Yeah.
Man.
Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So they're very expensive. I mean, this one is not too expensive, but most of the wines that they sell are very expensive. It can range from $4,000 all the way to $10,000 a bottle. So just imagine that, right?
Amazing. And so, what does a bottle like this cost? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm sorry?
What does a bottle like this cost that we're about to open?
Honestly, I don't know whether that's $4,000. I got that for a long time already. So,
when I was a waiter in my early 20s, when I was putting myself through acting school in New York, I mean, every actor was in food service at one time or another, but that is a traditional waiter's corkscrew that you're using. I used to be able to open a bottle of wine in 9 seconds.
Really?
Yep. I don't think it was. This was a tourist restaurant, so
yeah.
If it were a really nice restaurant, I would have taken a minute and 15 seconds. As it was.
Well, now they have these these devices where you put over the bottle and this this thing goes in the corkscrew and pulls it right out just electronically. It's pretty cool. Oh, that's really cool.
You need more practice, I guess.
Let me stand up and do this because I can do it a little better. I just don't want to
Cheers.
Welcome to Casa de los Flores.
Thank you. So far,
everyone.
Yeah, I can't imagine having a better time than I am right now.
Ooh,
it's very nice.
Really.
Wow.
You like it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do tasting notes. We go around the table. Everybody has to say one thing that they get out of it. All right?
One thing, okay.
Who wants to be first?
I'm getting grapes. No.
I smell.
It's fabulous.
Yeah, it's really
good.
delicious.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of black cherry. People getting black cherry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm getting fruit on the top.
I'm getting a little bit of wood, of course, a little smoke.
Does that mean you're
tiny
getting
bit.
turned on? Is that
Yes.
No, you just.
I like this podcast, where it's going here. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fabulous.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, black cherry. That's.
I mean, that's the thing I get.
I think you're right.
Next to pencil lead and bat guano. I think I'm getting. I'm kidding. I love making up.
Although I mentioned my first taste of wine was in 2001, but I became addicted to it in 2019. Somewhat addicted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in 2019, that's when I started really going around Napa, even going to Bordeaux just to buy wines. So I think now I have like close to 1,000 bottles of wine here. Yeah.
Wow.
Collecting, but maybe not as good as your collection.
So one of the ways that I've kind of judged or assessed cabs or heavier red wines is like how they when you drink a wine and it washes over your tongue and it feels like it kind of pulls minerals out of your tongue.
Yeah.
And some wines do that and you feel like it just made your tongue extremely dry because it just really pulls moisture out of the entirety of your tongue. This one hits me on like the front middle part of my tongue. Do you get that, where it kind of pulls the moisture out of that part of your tongue? And I think that's what they call like the tannic part of the wine. I'm not a sommelier, but I think that's what it is. And I believe that comes from the minerals that it pulls out of the soil and into the fruit. Am I right about this?
I don't know, but it sounded great.
It sounded amazing.
No, I mean,
So when you guys are smelling the wine and trying to figure out, what you're getting out of it, what is the process that you go through? Do you start at the top, and smell it, and
you want to put your nose in the top here, because if you put it down here, this is where all the alcohol vapor is going to come off. So that's why, like, if you let a wine open for 30 or 40 minutes, a lot of alcohol vapor burns off, and so you'll get more of it on the nose, more flavor on the nose. But if you want to smell it, you really want to get your nose right in the top of it there.
So you turn the glass a little bit, start from the top, really take it in. Do you kind of move down a little bit?
If you move down here, you're going to
get the alcohol vapor.
get the alcohol vapor.
Okay.
If you go... That's why some of those glasses, like if you've ever seen the giant Riedel glasses that are like that big, because you can really you can put a little bit of wine in those, really pull those up and get like your nose, like literally inside the glass, right? And I could live it inside of it. Now, I don't know that that's the right way to do that. That's how somebody showed me in a winery one time. How do you smell wine, Bob?
I have a friend who is himself a winemaker, and he, believe it or not, does this. He'll just, with his hand over it, and he'll spin the glass. I'm sure this is really annoying on the soundtrack. And then immediately...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's try
Because
that.
you get,
It's different.
Yeah,
Wow,
you
that's
get a real blast of the...
Oh, yeah.
and often, I mean, this is a very large pour for a taste.
Yeah.
Normally it would be a third of that amount, so it's easier to kind of spin it in the glass without risking, getting it. This has really beautiful legs.
Yeah, I was
too.
just gonna say. Yeah, and the color's gorgeous.
So that's the glycerin content,
You know what?
right?
They have to
Like
pay
higher
us
alcohol,
for
you get the
making a
legs.
good review for this.
Right?
I've always been, because some wines seem to be more viscous than others. Some red wines actually feel thicker. I don't know if that's an illusion, but I'm surprisingly, I've seen red wines that felt thinner, less rich, that also had legs. So there doesn't seem to be a correlation between, to me, and also there's no such things. Am I right? You don't see that in a white wine ever, right? Is that a characteristic only of red wine?
I believe so. Yeah.
Maybe it's just
I think
not
you do see it
noticeable.
in white wine. So what it is, it's the glycerin content. So if a wine ferments long enough and gets to a high enough alcohol and doesn't have a lot of leftover residual sugar, because some of the cheaper wines will have a lot of leftover residual sugar. These higher alcohol, like if you see like a Pinot at like 14.5 or 15%, it's going to have a lot of legs on it, generally speaking.
But most red wines are 14, are at least 14 and 14.5 to 15.3 or whatever, whereas white wines are almost always 12.5, right?
Yeah, they are lower. Yeah, so you don't see as much on white wines for sure. What is this one? Does it say on the back what this is? Can we look at the bottle? Why don't we pull up
I think it's 14.3.
14.5.
All right. See,
Yeah.
didn't have my glasses. I was close.
You're close.
So why don't you pull up the tasting notes? Why don't you pull up the profile on this wine? Let's talk about it a little more in depth, because I'm sure there's a sommelier somewhere that wants to shoot us while we're drinking this wine and not.
And not
Right,
knowing
right.
You
Okay,
know
so
what?
what am I
That's
Googling
okay.
here?
They can go watch a baseball game.
That's obviously very expensive wine, right? But this one, I like this better. Honestly.
So
You
black
have to try
fruits,
this.
camphor, crushed rocks, and graphite with an almost. Am I saying this right? Hot Brion. I can't see that.
Hot Brion? Yeah,
Yeah.
Hot Brion? Is that what it is?
Like a cold
H-A-U-T-E.
fireplace character.
A cold fireplace character.
Maybe that's that little bit of smoke that I got on it.
That's the smoke.
But black fruit. So that's black fruits are black cherry, blackberry, and
Right.
what other black fruits are they?
Right.
I mean, isn't that basically it? when you
Basically, it.
hear
Exactly what you
blackberry and
said.
black
too.
cherry?
Yeah, right when you got it.
Well, black cherry is. There's a lot of red wines where that is something that taste that I really enjoy. And I think it's probably a character of almost all good Cabernets.
So, and this one says that the notes have touches of lavender, mocha, cigar box.
As I said, when my children were young, I would read from Wine Spectator tasting notes just because they found them hilarious.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite wine characters is Rustic. There's a wine I enjoy. I think is it Monastral, the Spanish wine, or Monastra? The French version is Mourvedre. It's usually a blending grape. But in Spain you can get 100% Monastral. But anyway, I happen to like that wine, and I wondered why. So I looked it up, and the tasting notes constantly say rustic in character or barnyard. And if you look at the characteristics that constitute the description of barnyard, one of the tasting notes is fecal overtones.
What?
So I thought, nah. So I learned that if I've been in show business so long, I actually crave the taste of shit in wine.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I want to come back to this wine because this is a really special wine. I think it's going to develop over the course of this podcast, and it'll probably give us some more.
Do we want to
tasting notes?
Try another one while we're?
I think we should keep opening and get them open. So, Bob, you want to do the honors and get this one open?
This was my favorite.
This is your favorite from prior tasting or from reading about it?
From prior tasting.
Yeah.
All right. So the vineyard is Constant. It's the Diamond Mountain Vineyard.
Yes.
2001. Wow. Napa
Yeah,
Valley
it's a
Estate.
2001. So they did very good. I think this is my last bottle.
Yep.
It's estate grown. All right, here we go. Let's see. I'm not going to do this in 9 seconds because I don't want to show off.
Take your time.
While you were gone, we got bottles of water and we got tastings of 3 other wines.
Yeah.
But we haven't tasted them. They're just been poured.
That's correct. Yep.
So before we jump into wines, because I feel like we could spend an entire hour on wine, Bob, can we talk about you for a minute?
I would like to talk about Bob for a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this podcast, you probably know who Robert Picardo is, a famous actor from Star Trek, China Beach, the accolades, which we could talk about for a long time. Before we dive into questions about your acting career, I noticed that you're wearing a pin. Can you tell us about the pin that you've got on?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the Planetary Society pin. Mm-hmm. The Planetary Society is a space advocacy group co-founded by Carl Sagan in 1980. So we are now, what is that? Help me out here, 44 years old. Yeah. We are presently run by Bill Nye the Science Guy. We are the world's leading space advocacy group. If you love space and you want to be part of a community of people like you from around the world, then you want to be a member of the Planetary Society. I have been working with them for more than 25 years. I started out on the advisory board. I used to spearhead some educational challenges for young people back when my Star Trek show was on the air. I'm the first actor to ever talk the Star Trek producers into doing a public service announcement on the Star Trek set for the Mars Millennium Project. And one of the winners in that competition, a 14-year-old woman, went on to become a NASA scientist and works on one of the Mars rover missions. So that proved to me that if you capture young minds, their interest in space, the way my Star Trek colleague Nichelle Nichols did in the 1960s, she was a great promoter of Uhura, getting young women and particularly young women of color interested in being part of the space program. So in any case, if you're a fan of space and you want to have an incredible resource, be part of an organization where you learn exactly what's happening in space-capable nations all over the world, you want to join the Planetary Society.
That's great. How would one join the...
Just go on www.planetary.org. As I said, I've worked with them since 1998. Now I'm on the executive board. I get to sit around the table with all these brilliant people who oversee the James Webb Space Telescope, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was on our board for many years. So it's just I'm the stupidest person at the table, but I'm there to bring their message to the science fiction fan community, which I have done loyally now for more than a quarter of a century. So thanks for asking.
Absolutely.
When you are cast in a Star Trek series, all of a sudden you're in an environment where people that have been inspired by science fiction and gone on to do the real science, the real astronauts. I mean, I've sat on stage with 5 men who walked on the moon, and I thought, this is weird. I could feel uncomfortable about this, or I could embrace this opportunity and accept the fact that there's a long-standing inspirational relationship between Star Trek and NASA and real space exploration, and try to use that to be a cheerleader for space. So I've had the opportunity to sit and talk to people that are principal investigators and control space telescopes or all sorts of different. I've been to, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to JPL and met with people that are doing incredibly cool things, and then try to dumb that down enough to explain to lay people like me what they're doing and why it's cool. So I had a pod. I guess it was a podcast before they were called podcasts. If you search Robert Picardo on the website for the Planetary Society, you'll see many of the videos that I made with different, with cool people that about whatever project they were doing in. And also the podcast begins with a planet floating in space that turns out to be the top of my bald head. So it's called the Planetary Post, and I recommend that you search some of my old videos.
So this is really cool. So just so I understand, that there's no age that's too young to join the Planetary Society.
Absolutely. We now have a program for kids called Planetary Academy. It's been endorsed by people like LeVar Burton, my Star Trek colleague, who's famous for reading Rainbow. Planetary Academy. If you have a niece, a nephew, a child of your own who's 6, 8, 10 years old and is interested in space, there are all these.
Katrina's daughter. She's here right now. Her daughter's not here, but Katrina's here. Her daughter literally at like 2 years old, she was into space. She wanted stars on her ceiling. It was like she was this old soul that just came in, and Katrina's like, where did she get this from? Like, why? 2
years old?
She was so young.
She should join the Planetary Society.
She should join. Yep. Yeah. Planetary. As I said, it's
now
a program
12,
for young
so,
people.
yeah.
You get mailings. I think 4 times a year with different, not just information and colorful drawings and all that, but different little challenges and projects you can do to encourage.
Very
can,
cool.
if they're very young, they can do it with their parents. At her age, she'll be able to do it all on her own. So I encourage you.
She would enjoy that.
It's a very popular program. It started about 3 years ago. I have basically gotten so many of my Star Trek colleagues, from William Shatner, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner, to do Will Wheaton most recently, to do little testimonials for the Planetary Society that basically all end with the same, if you want to be part of a community with people like you that love learning about space, then you really need to join the Planetary Society.
Cool.
So, and I'm proud of the fact that I've used my relationship with Star Trek and the Star Trek fan community to promote something, beyond just buying, action figures and T-shirts and dolls with our faces on them.
Right.
Although I'm very happy to have. We get asked all the time what it's like having your own action figure. I said, it's great. You can finally play with yourself in public. So,
love that.
Sorry. That's it. We all use that joke.
Well, thank you for telling us about that. We all know you as the Doctor on Star Trek, the hologram Doctor from the Voyager, but I know that you have some very interesting stories about how you got into acting and what that looked like. When you were at college in Yale. Can you tell us a little about early life?
You want to do that?
Picardo?
You want to get back to that after we taste another wine, or
we
do you
can
want to keep
real quick though. I do want to ask this question. Star Trek. So, were you interested in Star Trek because you were a part of the Planetary Society, or was it?
What came first?
What came exactly? What came first?
I have to admit, I did not I was not captured by space as a young person the way some of my friends, like Bill Nye, the science guy, our CEO. I always loved life science. So I was a big biology fan and thought that I would devote my life to studying biology and probably go into medicine. But I really fell in love with space after Star Trek. And frankly, because of the opportunity I mentioned because of Star Trek, I met so many people that really, the astronauts and scientists and engineers involved in space exploration, that's what really, so my interest came through Star Trek. But the funny thing is that it's coming full circle now, because I now believe that during my lifetime we will discover evidence of life off our planet, even if it's only microbial life, former microbial life on Mars, or if it's going to be on a planet of Jupiter. We're going to discover life before I'm gone, and that will fundamentally change the way all of us see ourselves on this planet. Even if it's, as I said, even if it's just discovering microbes or little creatures under the icy moon, right, Europa, however it happens. And that's going to, so that means that my interest in life science will sort of, through space, will come full circle, because we'll now have life offside, off of our planet. And I think that whatever level that's at, I mean, it's going to be a long time before we find, aliens with rubber foreheads, the way we see them on Star Trek every week.
Right.
But still, just any evidence, it'll fundamentally change our worldview. That's what our CEO, Bill Nye, says, that it'll be a change that all of us feel the moment we have that proof of life off our home planet.
Well, that's great.
That's very cool.
That is so cool. Okay, do we want to try another our second wine, and then we'll get back into some
I think we should jump into the Tempranillo. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Which one?
The Tempranillo.
It's a prisoner.
This is a prisoner Tempranillo.
So Jason, tell us about this, because you're a like an elite member of Prisoner, right?
Yes. So let me just read the bottle. I think so. We got this at an event. It's called the Correction Event, and basically what this does is, the artist and the winemaker were at the winery, and they released these bottles. I don't think you can buy this now. This was just released at that time.
Can we show this to the camera?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a project going on right now where there are people that are incarcerated for very minor things,
like marijuana-related
things like that. So,
did you say marijuana?
Marijuana, yeah. So their whole goal is to help these incarcerated people, get released and things like that.
That's great.
Yeah, and not focus on those, minor infractions that back in the day when they got put in jail, it was considered major. But anyway, that's the goal. So this beautiful artist here. Let me see here. Okay, I'm going to read the bottle. See if I can do this, you guys. So this was done by Chris Burnett, the artist. Hands reaching toward each other represent the irrepressible human desire to extend empathy to those in need. This work challenges the viewer to bridge the divide and recognize their own responsibility to call out and correct injustice. So that's what this is, yeah.
And the artist himself is incarcerated?
He was.
Let's put that out so people can see this.
And he actually did this while he was in jail.
It's very beautiful.
And the winery is in Napa? Excuse me.
It is, yeah. The
Prisoner came out of nowhere like 10 years ago.
Literally, yeah.
And with a great, instantly.
I think it was honestly, I think they just opened up their winery. We walked into the winery by mistake, and the first week they were open, and we were walking in during closing, and they said, "Hey, we're closing up," and we were like, "Well, I think we're interested in being members," and we just wanted to taste some of their wine. Yeah. But they poured a few glasses of wine, and we were like, "We really want to be members." And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we were I guess we were one of the founding members, they call it, because it's called the Fringe.
Is this 8 or 10 years ago? Because I first had this wine maybe 7 years ago.
So they opened the winery. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna.
They produced wine before they had their wine tasting location.
Yeah, and Constellation bought them. I'm not sure. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'll ask Kent because he knows.
And I've only had their cab before, so are they now branching? This is 100% Garnacha?
This one is, but they're mostly known for their cab blends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do a bunch of different cabs, and now they have another division of Prisoner, which is called Saldo. So it's a whole other membership.
So the first Prisoner wine was released 20 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh, really?
Okay,
So,
but the winery's
the winery itself opened. I'm just waiting for this page to load. It'll tell us in a second.
Is it called The Prisoner? Is that what
The Prisoner.
Mm-hmm. The Prisoner was released 2 decades ago as a complex blend of some of California's best and most unusual grape varieties. It swiftly and permanently changed the perception of what a red blend wine could be. Since then, we've grown to include a range of rule-bending blends with provocative label designs being recognized by fans and wine critics alike as one of the most bold and innovative wine brands in the market, leading the resurgence of California luxury red blends and earning cult wine status. Today, our director of winemaking, Chrissy Whitman, and her team work with over 100 growers in Northern California, bringing together exceptional fruit to produce a family of intriguing wines unrestricted by tradition. The Prisoner Wine Company is located in St. Helena. Cool. Doesn't quite tell us the dates.
The first one I had was Cab Dominant, I thought. What was the blend? Their first one, Cab Merlot? Or
This Stones one that we tried? Is that what you're talking about? Or the Prisoner wine?
No, the Prisoner.
Oh, the Prisoner wine. The first red blend. I don't know what their red blend is. You probably know what their red blend is, right?
Well,
Let's just pull it up.
I don't know the first.
Prisoner red blend varietals. Here we go.
I thought it was like Cab Dominant. Like
What grapes are in the Prisoner wine blend?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, how weird.
Let's just refresh the page here.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Oh, it
Came
came?
up, yep.
And then I refreshed it.
Technical difficulties here. There we go.
So Zin with Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Syrah,
And Charbono.
and Charbono.
wow, and the Zin was the largest amount. It was more Zin than Cab.
Yeah, it doesn't say. I've never heard of Charbono.
So now we're getting in. You're moving over to Saldo.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on this.
Well, you can figure out how to get it. Sorry.
It's okay.
All right, well, let's give it a taste and tell
Give
us.
it a taste.
Talk about what we think about it.
Okay.
Are we moving on to the third?
Second.
No, we're just talking about.
Oh. Okay.
It is very tannic
Mm-hmm.
and dehydrating on the tongue, like I mentioned earlier. The minerality is pretty strong for a Tempranillo. What do you think? Do you agree?
Yeah, I found that it was less fruit forward than most. They can't call it a Tempranillo if it's made in this country, right? We're just calling it a Garnacha or not.
I don't
thought
know.
Tempranillo was a regional distinction.
I mean, what does it say on here?
I mean,
It doesn't say.
Are they calling it
Well,
100%?
they're calling it a Tempranillo.
They're calling it a Tempranillo, yeah.
Really?
All right, shows what I know. I thought that Tempranillo was sort of like, Chianti, that it had to come, otherwise you called it Sangiovese, had to come from the region. I found it a little less fruit forward, so that maybe a little more tannic than I expected. Good. I mean,
Yeah.
very nice. But
What do you think, Rod?
First time, but yeah, I
Did you-
like it.
I get some spice notes on the back, like kind of like it bites the back of your throat a little bit, like some spicy fruit or some allspice.
Yeah. I think number 1 was my favorite so far.
give me another teaspoon of this. Thank you.
Anybody else want a little splash more of this?
I'm good for
I'm
now.
good.
Maybe at lunch.
Awesome.
So which one's the third one? The constant?
Third one is the constant. That's the
This one?
2001. Yeah.
The 2001, yeah.
And whose favorite is this, or are we not allowed to know till after?
Well, yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that. But
See, I gave him up.
It's my favorite. Yeah.
Which
I
one?
think
The
we
Constant.
should skip over the Constant and go to the Catherine now, because the Constant is the oldest, and I think we'll get different notes out of it if we continue to let it open.
Okay. I
With
like
these
that.
old wines, they really develop.
So we're changing
lot.
order?
Yeah, I think we should change
Okay.
order.
We're changing order. Okay.
So we're going to go to
Sure.
the Catherine.
All
So
right,
let me
so we're
do-
trying Catherine first.
Oh wow. But this is the best for me. I really love Catherine.
You love this one.
Yeah. So Catherine Hall, of course, the winery is Hall,
Mhm.
and Catherine is the wife of the owner.
Okay.
So this is the label for the owner.
I went to their
And this is a
winery a few weeks ago.
2016 vineyard, and they said for Napa the best vineyard was 2016.
Mm.
Yeah. I remember when I went there, and they have like several cases left
Mhm.
during that time. So I decided, because I really love it. So I decided to just buy everything that they have.
Nice. It's got a beautiful
So
color
that's
to
the
it.
reason why I still have it. This is the best one for me. Not even stone. I love this.
It's got nice legs on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the stone is so rich. The first wine
It is rich.
was so rich that
Yeah.
it was almost a little overpowering to start with.
I call this my everyday wine.
Yeah, this is a.
But this,
It is a nice. Yeah,
This is a really nice wine.
really nice one.
And I can see it going with a lot of different foods very well.
It gives a nice like aged flavor without having an overwhelming kind of oak flavor, like it's been sitting in a barrel for 100 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can still really taste the fruit. You can still really taste the wine, but it tastes older than it is. But the color doesn't deceive you though, right? It's not. It doesn't have that brown hue, like it's.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
It's a really nice wine.
it is.
I would say it's dry, but it's still a little bit fruit forward. It's
What-
well rounded. It's not super tannic.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Bob?
I'm trying to get, I get some spice in it. I'm trying to get what, for example, the first wine, we all agreed it was, with the black fruit, especially black cherry, was the first thing that came into your mind. What is the first taste that you would say from this? Because it seems a little more complicated. I'm not getting a single note that jumps out. I'm certainly getting a lot of nice spice in it.
I get a ripe fruit flavor. I get a little bit of sour notes too. It doesn't hit the front of my tongue. Nothing I'm tasting on the front of my tongue. It's kind of all on the back and the sides.
Mm-hmm.
The tannicness is on the side.
For me,
sure.
I'm honestly, I'm getting plum.
Yes.
Yeah, I could say plum. That would make sense. Plum kind of has that ripe sour flavor, to it,
Right,
right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah. No, I think that's good.
Yeah, that's a really nice wine. It's just
It
a
is
really
cocoa.
well-rounded wine. It doesn't really leave
Cocoa,
you wanting
you call
anything.
it cocoa, right? Yeah. That's one of the taste.
Yeah, and like Bob said, it can go well with anything.
Yeah, I can see this.
And it's a
one.
Cabernet, right?
It's a Cabernet. Yeah.
Yeah, what's really nice about this for Cabernet is it is pretty light-bodied. Especially the way it
Full body.
washes over your tongue. It's not like leaving, soil everywhere on your. You don't get done and go, oh no, I just drank that. It's really quite clean and nice.
Now let's go back to that. We're real quick before we go to your.
Oh, we got to give a shout out to MADDOX Real
We
Estate
got to give a shout out.
Podcast.
So we've got over 100,000 subscribers.
Hold that up loud and
Hey.
proud. Come on.
Yeah.
Show that to the cameras.
So there we go.
That's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations, Jason.
Thank you. So we
Was that because of me? I'm just
because of Rod. Yes,
All because of you,
Yes.
Rod.
So you get this from YouTube because
Can I see
you've
that?
hit 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah, so-
My YouTube channel got stuck at about 6,000, so I'm in complete awe. Complete awe.
Yeah, we've got 100,000. I don't know how it happened, but I guess we got.
100,000.
I guess we got interesting to somebody
That's awesome.
or some people. Yeah. So
But is it the last time I checked? You already have 120,000 followers.
right. So we're up to 120 now. So
Wow.
and I think the next milestone is 1 million. Hopefully one day we'll get 1 million. That would be amazing.
You'll do
But
that.
yeah. But
Totally.
this is.
This is for this wine podcast.
So the way when we started off, it was obviously we do real estate, right? But we love wine, and so we did a couple of podcasts where we toured a couple of different wineries, and just went on tour, and we incorporated real estate into our wine podcast. So originally, the idea about it was wine about the Bay, right? So it was whining about real estate, but we were drinking wine and discussing real estate. So it was just kind of this play on words thing. And then, it kind of turned into more, the market started changing. We started talking about, we had Rob on a few times, quite a bit actually, talking about the market, and those seem to get really good views. And I feel like when we offer things like this, other things that we enjoy, and it's not just real estate all the time, people really enjoy that. And again, like our podcast, I think one of the great things about it is we're so, we just sit and have discussions. It's not like a scripted show or anything like that.
Exactly.
And I think people love that. And so I think that's what kind of took off. So the wine, the real estate,
and we give good advice, and we talk about unique things. Like I've built an ADU, and I'm building another one. In fact, we broke ground on another accessory dwelling unit this morning. Yeah, at the crack of dawn. And that was really exciting. And people want to know, how do you do those things? How do you finance them? How do you house hack? How do you get it so you're living in your house and don't have a mortgage payment because of the rent that you bring in, either through additional units or whatnot? And, that's a question that's pressing on many people's minds, especially because we're at a 30-year low for housing affordability. And part of that is cyclical, because we're going through a season of high inflation that we're trying to bring down through increased interest rates. But at the same time, if you look at the income, needed to own a home, it's much higher than the average income, and it's much higher than the blue collar income. So people want to find ways that they're not, house rich and cash poor. And if we can show them those strategies outside of simply just, go save up 3.5% down and buy a single family home and slave away and eat top ramen, that I think that resonates with people. Really I get a lot of calls with that question. How do I get myself into a position where the majority of my income is not going away to my mortgage payment, right? And we've covered that in depth, and we've shown people how to do it, also by living it ourselves, right?
Right,
So,
absolutely. And we've got great views on that, great success. So
Nice.
now back to Bob.
Bob, can we jump back into that
We got to
question?
jump back into that question.
So I know, because I know you, but I mean, you've told me these stories, and I'd love for you to share some of them. But can you tell us about how you got into acting? What were your early days looking like when you were in college at Yale?
All right. Well, my childhood ambition was to be a doctor, as I think I mentioned. So I was a biology major at Yale. But I continued to do theater, which I'd done in high school, because I went to an all-male high school, and the only way to meet girls was to be an athlete or to be in the school play. And the athlete thing wasn't working out for me, so I was in all the school plays, because the neighboring girls' school played the female parts in the play. So when I went off to Yale to be a biology major, I still tried to act in theater, and I was cast my sophomore year in a production that was a sort of a cooperative thing with the Yale School of Music, the graduate school, and the whole community of New Haven, not just Yale. So it had people that lived locally that sang or were musicians or whatever. And the piece was Leonard Bernstein's Mass, which Bernstein...
I saw this last night.
Bernstein had... You saw a new production?
I saw a video of you last night. I was just Googling something, and I saw you in it. You had this like massive amount of hair.
Yes, those were happy times. That was my own hair.
That was your own hair?
At age 19, I was cast in one of the leads in the Yale production, the Yale Music School production of Mass. Now, remember, I'm a biology major, but I suddenly was in this big production, and Bernstein himself came to see it, because our conductor, John Mosseri, who went on to have a very successful career, which he still has, conducting the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra and guest conducting all over the world. He was 27 years old at the time, and he had helped Bernstein. I think he'd been his choral director for a production of Carmen, the opera. And young John Mosseri said to Bernstein, I saw the production of your Mass at the Kennedy Center, which had commissioned the work, and he said, I think they screwed it up. I think I'd like to try a real poor theater production at Yale, and less sort of glitzy and flashy than them. So he said, okay, you got the rights for free. Bernstein came to see it and liked it so much that he took our student production to premiere the work in Europe.
Wow.
In Vienna. So at age 19, biology major me went to Vienna, and I had groupies. I had these. It's the only sexy role I've had in my entire 50-year career in that show. And Bernstein thought I was great in it. He jokingly called me the Great Picardo. I didn't know he was making a joke on the movie The Great Caruso. And he said, I assume you want to be an actor. And I said, no, I'm studying to be a doctor. I said, he said, I'm surprised to hear that. You have great natural energy on stage. I think you'd want to be an actor. And I said, Mr. Bernstein, would you say that to my mother? And he did. Opening night, he took my mother aside and told her he thought I should be. And, he was an icon, like Bernstein, right? So wow. I was out of pre-med like next week. And so I can honestly say that, he was, you look back at your life at my age and you go, who are the mentors, who are the people that kind of, pushed you in another direction? And without having had that validation from someone of his stature, I would never have thought about being a professional actor, because, I came from an immigrant family. All four of my grandparents were basically, poor people from Italy who came here. My father, first generation born here, had to drop out of school in the 9th grade to support his family when his father, the Italian immigrant, died in the Spanish flu epidemic, right? So my father in 9th grade was supporting a family.
Wow.
And then usually the first generation born here become business people. And that's what my father was. And the second generation become doctors and lawyers, and the third generation become artists. And I skipped a generation, right? I was going to be a doctor like I was supposed to be for being the second generation born here. So I short-circuited that. But thankfully, my sister became a doctor. So my mother had one doctor in the family. It was okay that I became an actor.
Well, and you got to play a doctor.
And you got to play one on TV, right?
I've spent 11 years between China Beach and Voyager. 11 years I've practiced as a television doctor. So I'm allowed to practice, but only on only on fictional patients. So I'm Mickey Mouse's physician, for example.
So can you tell us about your decision not to pursue a career in musical theater and instead go towards?
That's a great question. I assume when after I'd done the Mass, John Mosseri, the guy from the Yale School of Music, who had been the conductor, right, was going off to Broadway to do a revival of Bernstein's Candide. This is 1973. And I was offered a role in the show if I were willing to drop out of Yale at 20 or 19, whenever it was. I could have been in my first Broadway show. And that's pretty exciting. Suddenly you're in this, you're in Actors Equity, you automatically get in. And I said no, because I knew it would have broken my mother's heart, I think, if I hadn't gotten my degree. But I thought, if I had dropped out and done that show, I probably would have tried to have a career in musical theater.
Yeah.
As it is, I graduated Yale, and by 23, I had my first leading role on Broadway.
Wow.
By 24, I had my second leading role on Broadway, but neither were musicals. They were both dramas. And I thought, I think I'm a musical theater guy. What's happening? And it took 25 more years to be in my first musical, because I started from a different route. I started as a, serious actor, dramatic actor, because you can get boxed in very early on, I think if you, and also I was never a good enough dancer, frankly, to be in musicals. I'm always a disaster.
You're a great singer, though.
I'm a decent singer, but and I'm a good actor for musicals. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I'm not a great singer, but I think that I can, in a book musical, I think, if it's a role that requires certain acting skill, that I think that I can do very well in that area. But I'm such a bad dancer that choreographers go like, this guy's a disaster. What do we do? They just move around. We'll do something you can do. So I have danced in shows, but they've always sort of built it around what I could do. But in the video that you saw of me at 19, no one told me I couldn't dance at that point.
That was amazing.
So if you watch me, I move really well in that.
Well, I couldn't stop looking at your hair.
Yeah, but the hair was literally, and then when I moved around, the hair went
right.
like this.
It was.
Now my daughters have said to me, Dad, thank God. you don't look like that anymore.
Have you seen that video?
I've seen the hair, yeah.
Yeah.
So you told me a really touching story when you finished the show in Vienna. I think Leonard Bernstein came over to you on stage and
You remember everything, Rob. It's great.
Okay.
I completely forgot that. On stage in when we did we only did 2 performances in Vienna, and Bernstein came to the first one, the opening. And this is a huge stage, huge, right? And the cast were all sort of splayed across, and I'm way over on stage left. And Bernstein comes up on stage right, and he shakes hands. He shakes the conductor. He comes halfway down and shakes some of the cast and stays there, and then starts to leave in the curtain call, and he sees that he's missed me. This is a true story. He runs across the other half of the stage just to congratulate me at the end of the play.
Oh, wow.
That was probably the most exciting moment of my entire career.
wow.
It happened when I was 19 years old, but I still remember it.
Oh,
as if it were.
absolutely.
And as I said, the funny thing is, I thought I'd have music would be a bigger part of my career. And the great thing is, later in life, I've been doing more musicals.
I saw something on Instagram that you posted. I think, did you sing in the city? Was it a few weeks ago or something? You did something. I saw, and you were singing.
Well, you sang with Arturo Chacon. You did something with him down
yes,
in L.A.,
we-
right?
Was this recently?
I befriended a world-class opera star named
amazing.
Arturo Chacon Cruz, an extraordinary talent, and he and I have become friends. And when I met him, he's probably in his early 40s. He's literally in the peak of a career, performing, La Boheme, and I saw him at San Francisco Opera last fall doing playing Mandrico and Il Trovatore. He's just an extraordinary talent, and one of the kindest people, most self-effacing people you'll ever meet with that kind of talent. But when I met him, he said, yes, when Star Trek, he said, when I was training, I saw you sing La Donna Mobile. And I said, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, no, you were good. He was lying, right? So we did sing for a few seconds. We were out to dinner like a year ago, and under one of the famous bridges here, none of which I can keep straight. I can recognize the Golden Gate, that's it. One of the bridges, we sang a little from Don Carlo together.
Oh my gosh.
I have to sing like this with my finger, if he's over here, so that his part doesn't knock me off, because he's doing the high part and I'm doing the low part. So, but it's wonderful to meet someone like that who is an artist of up in the ether of talent, and to find them to be so. What's the word? Just so regular, nice.
Right.
He's an amazing guy. I've met him as well, and I got to have dinner with him one time, and I heard him sing Nessun Dorma in a show that we were both had a part of. But he gave me chills. I mean, like it's hard to follow that. It's hard to go before that. But he got up there and sang, and Nessun Dorma. I'm a singer. I studied voice in college. Nessun Dorma is a song as a tenor that you don't sing until your voice is fully matured as a tenor. Voice coaches will just tell you, no, I will not coach you that song until you're a fully matured tenor. And he nails it. It almost brings me to tears. It definitely gives you goosebumps.
And you can go and search Arturo Chacon Cruz singing Nessun Dorma, because he was on French television just 2 weeks ago doing it.
It is so amazing.
He's really, it's what Rob said. You just can't believe how kind and regular a guy he is, and what an enormous talent.
Wow.
I think he's one of the best voices of our generation, as far as just a pure skill and talent vocalist. It's simply phenomenal. But go and listen to it, and then you'll know. You'll see for yourself. I showed it to my family, and I was playing it to a few family members last night before dinner when everybody was kind of moseying around the kitchen, and like a crowd. There's like 15 people. I have a big family, right? Like a crowd gathered around, and they're like, "Who is this person singing?" It's capturing, so rapturing.
That's
so.
Amazing.
All right, well, why don't we taste another wine?
Yeah, let's taste. I think we're running out of time, which sucks. I know you're leaving to film a TV show, right?
I'm not allowed to talk about it.
You can't talk about it. Okay.
But yes, I am still working. Let's put it that way.
Okay, you're still working.
It's
Okay,
still
so but
later
hopefully later on we can maybe get you
in
back.
the future. Absolutely. Okay. But yes, the important thing is that that I'm still doing new material. But yes,
I love that.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. Okay.
But I'm something that's not a secret is that I'm doing a voice performance on an animated series called Star Trek Prodigy that just premiered this last week.
Is that Netflix?
That's on Netflix. Yeah.
Oh, how
so
cool.
that is it's the animated me, which is great. I like the animated me. He's skinnier. He's younger looking. My wife complains that they didn't quite get this part of my face right, but I think he looks fine.
I love
but
that.
my animated me is getting a lot of good reviews.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
So we're gonna go to the constant next. We'll
Constant.
revisit the stone that we tried earlier at the end. Now that when it's fully developed, the constant. Rod, you can talk about this. This is just a phenomenal wine. It's old. It's 2001. It's got a great brown. This is a phenomenal cab. Please enlighten us, Rod.
The color's gorgeous.
So I was invited to go to Constant one time, like maybe 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my first visit to the winery, and it's very exclusive one. They only have like one group in the morning and another group in the afternoon. So and they have pairing, and they have to assign a specific chef for you. So no more than 10 people at any given time. It's kind of exclusive. It's really good. This particular wine, I didn't even remember that I had like 2,000 wine. It's a Sauvignon Blanc, right? No,
this is a Cabernet.
It's a Cab, yeah. So
It's delicious.
it's really
This
delicious.
is
I think
my favorite.
for me, if I were to rank all these four, I'm gonna go, of course, for Catherine Hall first, Stone and Constant.
I mean, one of the things that's so special about this is you can taste the age, and it's just what you want. I mean, if you get a really old wine, you're tasting something completely different because there's so much of the flavor of the barrel that's gotten into that. And if it's lasted that long, congratulations, But I mean, this is really phenomenal. Like, it doesn't get in the way of a great tasting wine, but you still know you're drinking something old and special, and it has all those characteristics, the spice notes, that the mellowness. Now that it's been open for a little bit. It's complex. It's very drinkable. This is in my opinion, this is just like a peak Cabernet.
Yeah,
this is a very good cab.
I mean, as much as I enjoyed the first one is kind of like a flavor blast.
Mm-hmm.
This one is more subtle.
Yeah.
Way more
Yeah.
subtle.
So this I'm getting oaky, obviously. Dark cherry. That's my first.
So the price doesn't dictate, whether the wine's going to be good or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've had some great cheap wines and terrible
Yeah.
expensive wines.
Oh, one of my favorite wine bottles of all time is a $9 Spanish Garnacha. No, it's amazing. I mean, I got it wholesale for $9 from my friend who's a Spanish wholesaler, but it's just 100% Garnacha from Spain. And it was a young Garnacha. It was like a 2022, and it was amazing. It was just so good. I mean, but to be clear, like, I like old world dry wines, and I like them young and old, right? So, but like a nice old world young wine that's dry is perfect for me. Good flavors on it, not super sweet, light bodied, and Grenache hits all those points. And when they do it right, they just do it right. And it just wasn't an expensive wine. You can't buy it here in the States, but you can get it through my friend who sells Spanish wines wholesale.
Right.
And I bought the last of what he had, about like 12 bottles, and that did not break the bank. It cost me less than one. And it was just amazing.
Wow. So, all right. So before we end here, you want to go back to the first one?
Yeah, well, I think we should. I think the first one that we tried is going to be different now because it's been open for almost an hour, right?
So let's just, that's a good idea.
But you
first
could
one.
spend a lot of time with that Constant. That's just such a sweet wine.
Yeah, that Constant, I think, the other day when we had it, out of all the wines we were trying, that was just my favorite.
You can do that with old wines, though. I mean, the old wines, the more they open, you get a lot on the nose, you get a lot on the flavor. Like,
Right.
Jason and I recently were at an event, and a friend of mine was there, and he had opened a really special bottle of wine. It was a 1958 Mouton Rothschild with the artwork by Salvador Dali. It was beautiful, right? I mean, these are very expensive bottles, and if they keep that long, that's even more amazing because it's just so hard to keep a wine. You can buy them at auction and hope they're good. He came over and poured us, a
I think
taste.
we spent like 20 minutes.
We spent 20
smelling
minutes with it.
Yeah.
Because there was just so much to enjoy about it, with each sip and each scent, and it was special. But that's kind of what you got to do with old wines because they have a lot going on.
So now that we're done with these wines, going back to the first one.
Which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite?
I love the. I love the. The black cherry is really coming through now.
Yeah, now the fruit's coming through. You don't get the ethanol burn in your nostrils.
Wait, what are we having? The first one?
We're going back to the
this
first.
Is the stone, yeah. I mean, this has really had a chance to open.
Now I love this. So I'm wondering if do you think it's because it's been open, or
I'm sure. I mean, the first 30 minutes that a good wine is open, that ethanol has to burn off, and you're not really able to taste and smell the true characteristics of the wine until that's occurred. And this has had that time.
Which one's in the decant?
The constant.
That's the constant.
Yeah. Oh, the constant.
So we'll have that one at lunch.
Okay, great.
I think, yeah.
I think the constant was.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah,
that's mine too.
I mean, they were all good, and all good in different ways.
Yeah.
Oh, that stone is
really good.
It's better.
Stone is totally different now.
I know.
It's not dehydrating your tongue as much when it's going down. You still taste its botanic. You taste way more of the fruit, but it's not overly sweet. And then when you get the big whiff of it, you don't get any. There's no alcohol vapors going up to burn the nostrils. You get all of the characteristics.
I agree with you that because it did have a very alcohol-forward smell early on that's gone.
It was harsh for a moment in the beginning.
Well, that was pretty cool how we did that. So yeah, I'm with Bob. The constant is just hands down.
Was great, and that was the
Constant's
cork that I opened, and I got a tiny little fleck of cork in it.
Did you?
Broke the cork, but I only got it in my glass. Does anyone have cork in their
I did not get mine in mine.
No, I didn't have any in my glass.
All right.
No.
Well,
Oh, I did. Look at it. Yeah.
all right, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I did my best. It was a little dry, but
amazing.
the wine was spectacular.
Well, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, and I'm so glad that we had you on.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh my God,
and thank you, Rob, for remembering every detail I've ever told you about my career. I want you to write my autobiography because I've forgotten more than half of it.
So we would love to at some point later on, when you're free, to have you back. We'll do some more wines and talk more. I mean, like I said, we can go on for
Wait, do we
days.
have to wrap up right now, or can we?
Well, I mean, we're kind of running out of time.
Can we get one more brief story out of you? Can I listen?
Okay, one more brief story.
You're going to prompt me because
I'll prompt you.
I'm
sure,
talked
sure.
out. Okay.
So I mean, you have a lot of great stories. I've heard a lot of them over the years. Star Trek is not just popular amongst us plebeians, but also amongst the celebrities. Tell us a little bit about what it was like meeting Robin Williams and how he reacted to you. This is kind of a cool story, and it's fun to hear.
Right. My two daughters that are now, of course, adults in their mid-30s, when they were very young, like all kids their age, they loved Robin Williams, mostly because of Mrs. Doubtfire, but other movies as well. And I used to do a yearly charity event that benefited the Pediatric AIDS Foundation called A Day for Heroes. And the different celebrities from movies and television or whatever would sign autographs, and all the proceeds went to this charity. So my kids had been there before. They're probably, at that time, maybe 9 and 11 years old, I'm guessing. And I had been there signing my autographs for Star Trek and all that. And Robin Williams was there, donating his time for the benefit of the charity. So I waited in line dutifully with my two daughters so they could get Robin Williams' autograph. And when we got to the front of the line, he went, "Doctor, it's an honor." And I went,
"Whoa.
Robin Williams knows who I am." Apparently Robin Williams is a huge Star Trek fan. A couple of years later, when he was shooting the American version of La Cage aux Folles at Paramount, he was right next door to us.
Just watched it 2 days ago.
And he loved being there because he would hang out with all the Star Trek actors and play, stickball or whatever, because it turns out he's a huge Star Trek fan. When I ran into him years later in New York, maybe only 4 or 5 years before he passed away tragically, he was in a science fiction giant comic book store in New York. I can't remember the name of it. Something like Forbidden Planet, but I think that's in England. And again, I ran into him, and he I don't know that he knew my real name, but he always called me doctor and was always, very kind and friendly to me. And I realized that he was there not for his kids. He lied and said, "I'm buying some things for my kids." He was not. He was buying comic books for himself because he was a lifelong, sci-fi comics, he's a lifelong geek, and that,
I love
but he
that.
was, and many of my colleagues from the Voyager cast were also delighted, to hang out with him because, he's he had an incredible career, but at base, at heart, he was a fan himself, and it's always funny to meet someone who achieves that level of success where they still have that childlike part of themselves.
Right.
That if you're part of a franchise they love, I get lumped in with William Shatner and everybody else he was watching when he was a kid. So that's that is a good story. Thank you for forcing me to tell that.
That's a great story. Wow.
And I want to extract one more nugget out of you related to this. So you were cast briefly. I think you told me it's the only job you've ever been fired from.
Oh God, you remember everything. I can tell we carpool a lot.
Yeah.
I've told him everything. The only job I've ever been fired from in television was Mork and Mindy, his first television show. Yeah.
I love that show.
It was, I think, the last season when their ratings were failing, so they married Mork and Mindy off. Mm-hmm. And I was an exterminator in his house, and I'd been in a room of actors that were 15 years older than me. I was the youngest one, and I made them laugh, so they hired me. And then 2 days later, they thought, man, this guy, the jokes didn't fit someone of my youth, right? So yes, I never asked him whether he recognized me as his, because that was years before I did Star Trek. So yes, the only time I've ever been fired.
And kind of the reason you got cast for it is because you made them crack up a lot when you did your monologue, right?
Well, because, in sitcoms, all you have to do is make them laugh. And if you improvise or do anything off the page, the material itself wasn't that funny in my memory. And I lived in a New York apartment, and all New York apartments, especially cheap ones, have roaches. So I remember having an exterminator come in my apartment, go like this. Don't breathe this shit, like that. Literally, he'd already like hosed me down with it when he warned me not to inhale it. So I thought that was funny. So when I went into the audition, I believe I brought a spray bottle of water, and I hosed everyone down in the room, and I said, "Don't breathe this," like that. And that's why they hired me. So you get hired always. But then, I think the joke was Robin Williams' character asks me for advice. Because he's an alien, he'll ask anyone for advice, even an exterminator. Right. And one of the jokes was. I said, my character, he responds to him and says, "Oh, that's funny." He said, "But if I want to laugh, I'll ask my wife to wear shorts." And when they fired me, they said, "Your wife would look good in shorts." So that's how they let me go gently, because I was too young. They hired a guy 20 years older than me and who was overweight, and there you go. So that was the reason I was fired. Don't ever tell you a story, because you'll never forget it.
Never forget it.
So when I was a kid, that show, my favorite character was Jonathan Winters.
Oh, really? God, what a genius.
Oh, my. He was my favorite character.
Well, even I'm a generation older than you are, practically. And same thing, Jonathan Winters had his own television show when I was a kid. And wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he was literally on the edge of insanity his whole career.
I loved him.
He was so funny.
I remember connecting with him as a kid. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this has been a really fun podcast, Bob. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I can't thank you enough. Yeah.
Rod, thank you for hosting at your beautiful home. We're gonna have some B-roll that you'll see of this tour of this home, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm so looking forward to the lunch.
The lunch, the lunch. He prepared an amazing lunch.
But they don't get to see the lunch.
They don't get to see the lunch.
That's all for
Sorry,
us.
folks.
All for
you
us.
don't see the lunch.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so
Thanks
much.
for watching.
Thank you.